Hi, Mike and Arlen, our Philippine journey. Thanks for joining us. 5 reasons most relationships fail, not just in the Philippines, but anywhere. And at the end, one reason extra that you find more often in Asian countries, but also in the Philippines. So let's get started.
I never got it, why'd you have to go? I guess this world's too slow for you. I think there's beauty in the gray, the cold, but you just want the gold. And there's no way I can beat it, cause I got no chance, no chance when it comes to her. She got the glitter and the fame, and I just wasn't enough.
There's obviously a million videos about relationships, but we find that we have to remind people. We see it in our own groups of exposure to other people here. So, this is something that, while a little bit redundant, maybe two things need to happen here. The first one is perhaps you need to be reminded. And then, secondly, perhaps you need to look in the mirror. But keep this in mind, these 5 items, actually 6, will be common in every relationship. Not only that, but for those of you that have not seen all the videos, you'll find it reasonably informative. There's probably a list of 100 reasons. These are the top 5. But let's get started with it right now. Every relationship needs and deserves trust, and it's a two-way street. You're going to need to trust your partner, and your partner needs to trust you. Now, I know that many, a vast majority of expats here, and I'm sure in other countries, are simply there because they're changing their lives. And maybe their previous life didn't have a great relationship. And maybe that relationship ended on a less than positive note. And so there are reasons to have trust issues. In addition to that, in many countries, the whole process of ending a relationship, whether it's even a live in type or a marriage, is expensive, emotional, time consuming, and if it's got children involved, it gets even worse. So I know that a lot of people are gun shy on trust, but it's something that you have to get past. Now, it may take time, all right, and it may have to need boundaries and things like that. But these are issues you have to talk to your partner about and make sure they fully understand it. Trust is a huge issue. Communication. Well, if you're going to have trust issues, it's because you don't communicate. And communication with Asian women, Filipino, Thai, Vietnamese, Chinese, even, all right, and others, is and can be a little bit challenging. And I'm not just talking about understanding their language or them understanding your language, it's the use of the language. For instance, um, prepositions. Prepositions don't normally fall into a lot of Asian languages. They're there, but they're infrequently used. This can be confusing. Pronouns, they also are a little different. So when you think about communication, um, think about what it is you're actually trying to. I had to check that. What you're actually trying to get to, and make sure it's understood. Now, in the Philippines, and this may be in other Asian countries, but in the Philippines, Filipinos traditionally do not like to talk when they're uncomfortable. And many people, you'll hear this in so many different um, vlogs. You know, my wife has Tampo. Um, Tampo is just when they shut down, they don't want to talk to you. You've got to respect that because they were brought up, raised. It's part of their culture and it's instilled in them. I'm not saying it can't be changed. I'm not saying it can't be improved on, but when they don't want to talk about something, they choose to not talk about it. Period. End of story. And you've got to gently work over time. You've got to give them time to get past the initial triggering event, and then you've got to give them time to be willing to discuss it. But you've got to get that communication piece down pat. Bump, bump. Loss of intimacy. Now, I'm just not talking about regular, we confuse intimacy with sex often. Sure, that's a big part of it. And if that's an issue, you need to have that addressed. But with age gap relationships, that's a possibly a big deal. It doesn't matter how shy and conservative your Filipino spouse is, they still want that sense of intimacy. Now, that can be simple as holding their hand in the theater while you're watching a movie, or snuggling up while watching TV, and even communication. That's a form of intimacy. So you've got to be able to get past that. You've got to be able to provide it, but they've got to be able to provide it to you as well. Infidelity. You know what? It's just a deal breaker. It really and truly is. I shouldn't say that. You know what? We do or are aware of the fact that there are people that are in what are quote unquote open relationships. But that's a small number as far as I know. It's not something that we know much about really. But the point with this is when you talked first about communications, and then you talked about boundaries, and then you're addressing the lack of intimacy, infidelity is a natural next step of making sure you take care of that before it becomes a problem. Something you've got to do. I mean, I can't stress enough that these things are all deal killers in a relationship. They'll either kill it immediately or they'll kill it one day at a time eventually. No other way to really talk about it. Finances. Finances are a big deal. All right. There's an expectation on both sides of this equation. You may have an expectation that they contribute to the family household. They may have an expectation that you are the main contributor or even the sole contributor to the family household. We know Filipino couples, expat couples, where the husband prefers that his spouse does not work. You can't hold that against her because she doesn't work. They don't, to them, the time they spend with their spouse or partner is worth far more than what they would get paid going to a routine job. Then you've got to accept that. On the other hand, we know Filipino expat relationships where the husband says, if you want to work, it'd be sorely appreciated. Sure. And it gives that partner a sense of self-worth. Okay? They feel like they're worth something. They're bringing money or They're contributing to the household. The feelings on this are in many different directions. But the point with this is finances play a huge role. All right. And you have to do two things. The first one is you need to establish before anything, you've got to establish with your spouse or partner, this is what we can afford, and this is the type of life I can afford to provide. The second thing is they have to accept that. And finally, then you have to create a budget, and you need to stick with that budget. I can't tell you how many people come here to the Philippines and they party like rock stars for a year and a half, only to find out they can no longer support that lifestyle. And their girlfriend is like, well, this is the lifestyle you said we would have, not what you said we would have until you ran out of money. Okay? It's not that she didn't care for you or didn't love you, it's the fact that this was the assumption that was made, and you did nothing to safeguard that assumption. Finances will kill you. Now, the final one. Here's the extra. Family. When you get into a relationship with a Filipino, you absolutely have to set your personal boundaries with her. If you're willing to help contribute to the family household, her family, how are you going to contribute? Is it her mother and father? Or does it include her mother, father, 3 brothers, 2 sisters, their children, and the very favorite cousin? You've got to put it out there that this is all that you can afford. And you've got to put it out there that this is all you're willing to do. At some point, everybody has to get off their ass. Now, I can take a lot of shit that's going to come at me with this, but the bottom line is while jobs are hard to come by and while they do not pay, they are out there. Now, they may not be available in the province. So your brother may have to move, your brother-in-law may have to move to the big city to get a job. Your brother-in-law may have to do construction or be a cook, or your sister-in-law may need to be a waitress at a restaurant. Whatever. Jobs are out there. I can't tell you how many jobs as a kid I had. I mowed yards. I worked in a couple of different businesses doing menial labor all the way through my more senior high school type years. And in college, I worked at least 1, if not 2, part-time jobs. Certainly, they can as well, or at least in my opinion. So you have to draw a line. You have to understand where it goes. As far as parents go, that sense of being that they have, that sense of culture, is that the children take care of the parents in their senior years. If you can reach an agreement on the boundaries as to how that takes place, great and dandy. Up to you. I'm just telling you, family matters. And more than that, family is something that is ingrained in their culture. Now, it's getting a little bit more westernized and things are changing, but traditionally, that's the way it is. Couple of things I'd like to get out real quick. Number 1, please do subscribe. Hit that thumbs up if you enjoyed this or if it was any use for you. Number 2, we've been super busy planning our next trip. We actually have several trips coming up and around, but I'm not going to tell you where, but we are going to be going and visiting another country here in Asia very shortly. As you remember, maybe 3 months ago, you already know, we were in Thailand. This is going to be another destination, not Thailand. And it's actually going to be a new destination to both of us, which is going to be fun and interesting. Otherwise, we hope you had a great day. We hope you're going to have a great day. And we wish you well. Take care.